Insider trading bill's on Harry's desk right now.
See?
Tell him to get him out. It's already there.
I'm going to tell him.
Tell him to get him out.
I'm going to tell him. I'm going to tell him to get it done.
That was Massachusetts Republican Senator Scott Brown lobbying President Obama. He was actually asking President Obama to, in turn, lobby Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid to bring to a vote in the Senate Senator Brown's bill banning insider trading among members of Congress. The president had just expressed his support for such a bill in his State of the Union address. A Republican running for re-election in the predominantly Democratic state of Massachusetts, Senator Brown is now trying to find every way he can to appeal to independent and Democratic Party voters in Massachusetts. But his Democratic challenger, Harvard Law School professor Elizabeth Warren, is already running well ahead with 49% to Brown's 42% in the latest poll. Joining me now, Democratic Massachusetts Senate candidate Elizabeth Warren. Thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
I want to begin with a trick question. What did you hear in the State of the Union address the other night by President Obama that you disagree with?
Ooh, the part that I disagree with, that's tough. Can't we start with the part I love best?
Go ahead. Go to that.
When he talked about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Of course,
so tickled. Yes. That's right. And talked about getting Rich Cordry in there and getting the agency really up and running and saying to the Republicans who've been blocking it, no more. We're turning this agency on full blast and going to make it work. That was the part that made my heart sing.
And he did mention something that Scott Brown is in favor of, which is banning insider trading in the Congress. Yep. In fact, Senator Brown's introduced a bill to ban insider trading. If you were in the Senate now, would you co-sponsor that bill with Senator Brown?
I have to say, I think it's great to ban insider trading. What I'd ask for, though, is couldn't you make it just a little bit tougher? I don't think members of Congress ought to own stock in companies that they're writing laws that could make a difference in the financial outcomes. I'm really kind of tough on this one. So what I'd like to do is tweak it up a little, but I'm really glad to see it. I think it's the right thing to do.
Well, I got to tell you, having worked in the Senate and seen a lot of the financial disclosure forms, I would tweak it beyond that. I would say if you're in the Congress, while you're in the Congress, you simply cannot own stocks. Why own stocks? There are plenty of other things to do with your wealth, if you have wealth, when you go into the Congress.
I'm with you on this. Either don't own it or put it in a blind trust, where someone else manages it and you literally can't see what's in there. I realize there's some wealthy individuals, I'm not one of them, but some wealthy individuals who have a lot of stock portfolios. But you're exactly right. I don't understand how people can be out there in the House, in the Senate, they get inside information, and they're making critical decisions. We need to feel like they're making those decisions on our behalf, not as an investor who would do better if the law goes this way instead of that way. I agree.
I think there's something to be said for going a step beyond what is just the basic minimum that you'd expect from other people. In Congress, there should be some higher standard. I want to talk about Mitt Romney's tax returns. Senator Scott Brown has endorsed Mitt Romney, and he endorsed him before he knew what tax bracket he was in. And when talking about the tax returns, Senator Brown said on a Boston radio station before they were released, he said that Mitt Romney should release them. But then about Romney, Scott Brown said he's in a category. A lot of those folks are in categories that we don't really understand. Now, Scott Brown seems to be saying that Mitt Romney is in an income category that we simply can't understand, and that maybe when the information comes out, it won't make much sense to us. What's your reaction to that? Do you understand the income category that Mitt Romney is in?
Yeah, actually, I think I do understand it, and that is that Mitt Romney pays 14% of his income in taxes, and people who get out there and work for a living pay 25, 28, 30, 33%. I get it. Mitt Romney gets a better deal than any of the rest of us because he manages to earn his income in a way that has been specially protected for rich folks. I think that's wrong.
And going forward, the president has proposed the Buffett rule, which you might as well call the Romney rule, kind of in reverse, like have these people pay at least 30%. Senator Brown put out a press release after the State of the Union indicating a few things he agreed with the president on. That was not one of them. He does not seem to believe that there's any changes that should be made in the taxation of the super wealth of people like Mitt Romney.
Well, you have to remember, Senator Brown made quite a show of signing the Grover Norquist tax pledge, saying no, no, no on any form of increase in taxes, even if what it means is really more fairness in the system. You know, this whole thing, we talk about it with Mitt Romney, and that brings it to the fore. But there really is this issue that just keeps going round and round, and that is look at the big corporations. We now have these huge corporations. The one that's been in the news a lot has been General Electric, legally paying zero in taxes. And every complication in the tax code that permits them to pay zero is absolutely sacrosanct, according to these Republicans. But at the exact same moment, they say to young people, you're going to have to take on more debt to get an education. Or they say to seniors, you know, you may just have to learn to live on less. In my view, that's really, in many ways, what this election is about. Do we really believe that the investments we should be making as a country are all about protecting it for those who've already made it? Or do we believe it ought to be about investing in the future, investing in young people, and honoring the promises that we've made to our seniors? I really think this is, it's not finance, it's not economics, it's values. That's really what this is about.
You know, I think Ross Perot brought something great to presidential campaigning. He brought graphs, he brought charts and graphics, and he showed people the deficit. And I would just wonder if someone can bring to a campaign charts and graphs and show that money that General Electric is not paying in revenue to the Treasury, and what that means to other spending and other revenues to the Treasury, and how it affects the man in the street, how it affects the student going to state universities. And you know what? It sounds like it would take a professor to do that.
You know, actually, I have to say, I don't think this stuff is rocket science. I don't think it's that hard to do it, because ultimately, we're going to pay something to keep this country going. We're paying something for national defense. We're going to pay in one form or another the investments in our future, for our regulatory structure. The real question is kind of who's going to carry that and in what way. Part of this that really gets to me, we say to the biggest corporations, you can get out there and find all of these loopholes. You know, I read that General Electric employs 974 people to make sure that it pays zero in taxes. How many small businesses can do that? You know, small businesses, it's not just individual versus business. This is really about kind of who can have all the lobbyists and who doesn't. Little businesses, they don't get to hide money in the Cayman Islands. They don't get to say, oh, I'm going to restructure and call my employees contractors and do all these things to try to save themselves taxes. That means they end up picking up the slack. And the other part of it is when we don't make investments then in America's future, in education, when we don't invest in infrastructure, when we don't invest in research, who bears the burden on that? It's America's middle class. It's a series of choices that we have to make here. And I just think we just got to keep making them clearer and clearer and clearer, even if it means holding up charts. But we got to keep talking about this.
Elizabeth Warren, thank you very much for joining me tonight from my hometown in Boston.
Thank you for having me here.
The Ed Show is up next with more reaction to tonight's debate.